Welcome back, PetaPixel viewers. It is Chris Nichols here, and we're coming to you from the beautiful streets of San Francisco, starting here in Chinatown. This is a special episode because I've got a full production Fuji X100 VI that we're going to be reviewing today. Jordan is shooting me on a full production X100 VI, and Jaron Schneider, our editor-in-chief of PetaPixel, is joining us also with a Fuji X100 VI. It's going to be a good one. Now give me that. When I first started my photographic journey 25 years ago, there just weren't that many ways to learn the craft. So I tried the whole classroom thing and it just didn't work out. I ended up dropping out because, you see, not everybody learns effectively in a classroom environment. I wanted to learn at my own pace, and I wanted to work on projects that really truly interested me. Nowadays, as a photographic creator, I can't just rely on my camera to be successful because my business and my creativity can blossom if I know a number of other creative skills. To learn new creative skills that can help my business grow and succeed, I turned to Skillshare. Skillshare is the world's largest online community for learning creatives, and they've got thousands of classes covering things like illustration, photography, and graphic design, as well as music, marketing, and productivity. So Skillshare really does have classes for everyone. And if you're not sure where to start, Skillshare makes it easy with their learning paths that will take you from novice to pro really quickly. Now, learning paths are hand-picked classes meant to be taken in order that build on one another, reinforcing your skills. They're available in a range of experience levels from beginner to advanced and a variety of categories, including design, productivity, creative freelancing, tools and software like Procreate and Blender, marketing, and so much more. Personally, I wanted to learn graphic design so that I could make merch for the channel, and Skillshare automatically curated a list of lessons for me so that I could improve my logo making skills in no time. I appreciated that the graphic design basics Start Exploring and Expressing learning path provided classes from different instructors, so throughout my progress, I was constantly learning something new and seeing a different perspective. So make 2024 the year that you expand your creativity and join me on a learning journey. The first 500 people that click the link in the description below will get 1 month free trial to Skillshare. Get started today, and big thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so you may recognize Jaron Schneider from the podcast. He's joining us out here. It's fun shooting with you together. We never do this.
We don't do this very often.
It's really nice. So you should definitely check out our pre-release video of the X100 VI because that has all the specs and it's got all the stats for weight and stuff like that. Today, what we really want to focus on is the experiential part of this, shooting this camera. I do also want to say Jordan's shooting on the X100 VI in autofocus handheld, so you're going to get a pretty good test of how the stabilization works, how steady he is.
So now this might be the first time you're using it for an extended time after pre-release, but I've been shooting with it since Japan. I shot a bunch in Portland. I'm shooting here now in California, and I'm having a great time with it. I'll share as many photos as I can to go along with yours to show it in different environments, not just an overcast day in San Francisco.
Right. Now, what do you think about this new lens and the 40 megapixel sensor? Because you've seen a lot of your own samples.
Yeah, I've seen people who are concerned that it won't resolve. I have absolutely no issue with the sharpness. It's resolving just fine to me. I've been shooting it everywhere from wide open to all the way closed down, and I like the image quality across the board.
So one thing that I want to definitely check out here with this is the autofocus improvements. So certainly tracking off the back screen, but also tracking through the OVF. I'm going to give that a shot. I'm normally on this camera shooting off the back screen. I'm not a huge fan of the optical viewfinder hybrid, but let's see how it goes. I'm going to give it a try. 35 is not wide enough, which has always been its problem.
Half-second shot during the day with a built-in ND, I really appreciate that. Like, I think I might just shoot long exposures for the next hour. Are you having a good time?
I wish I had a 28 or an 85.
You have a 50.
I know. That's what I'm using.
Are we actually walking up this? God, me.
You'll make it.
I want the stairs. That's much better.
So I have had a little bit of time here now shooting around, playing with the optical viewfinder hybrid. This is where you're getting an optical viewfinder, but with a digital overlay. And I do love a lot of aspects of that. I mean, when I put the 50mm converter on here, it automatically detects that, changes the frame lines. I love that it's largely correcting for parallax as I focus closer or further away. I get a lot of metering things. And one of the really neat things as far as autofocus goes is I'm getting tracking autofocus using that optical viewfinder. It's a neat experience. I think it's useful, but I do find it's a little bit slow to acquire, and sometimes it's not exactly exactly tracking I want it to track on. I'm also not getting specific eye detection, at least it's not showing up in the optical viewfinder when I'm using it. Now when I go to the digital EVF, I still prefer this experience because now I'm getting proper exposure preview, I'm getting all my autofocusing capabilities, the tracking is very accurate and it's working really nice. So overall I'm finding the tracking is hitting perfectly where I want it, doing a lot of street photography here and getting great shots just right on the eye. This is the nicest X100 as far as focusing goes, and I'm really happy with the precision that I'm getting.
I don't really use sophisticated autofocus with this camera. I've tried it. I don't like it any more than I just like zone, and I use the little thumbstick on the back or the touchscreen to move it where I want. I will say it has a tendency to drift from where I left it. Like if I leave it on and it hits my shirt or something and it moves it, or the touch activates when I don't really think about it. So I just have to kind of recorrect, but it's pretty easy. Just hit the toggle right in the middle and it's fine. But yeah, I've had no problems with actual autofocus performance, with shooting what I want to shoot, and I always get what I want.
Boring res test in our basements back home? No, I mean, we're wandering the streets of San Francisco, we're in Chinatown here, and look, we've got the perfect res test right there. So taking a look here at our shot at f2, you can see we're getting actually really good detail, even when zoomed in quite close. Now, if you stop down to f2.8, you will get some optical improvement. You can see it here in the image. And so if you're worried about sharpness, absolutely feel free to stop down to at least f2.8. Here you can see f4. Things aren't really getting much better. I mean, this is really the kind of camera, though, that I would happily shoot this lens at f2 when I want the shallow depth of field. I think the sharpness is still perfectly acceptable. So first thing I want to say is a huge thanks to all of you guys for following us. We love the views that we're getting. We do like the subscriber numbers, but they've slowed down a bit. Let's pick those up because that's where we get all of our emotional validation from, okay, especially Jordan. So I'll make you guys a deal. If you haven't subscribed, just click that right now. It's super easy. Click the subscription. But look, I don't expect something for nothing. So if you can get us up to 200,000 subscribers by June 1st, Jordan, Jaron, and myself will record us on an upcoming episode eating our least favorite foods. And I mean, not least favorite like yuck, I mean least favorite like we're gonna throw up. So in our first impression video, I shot a lot of Real Ace because that is one of the new film simulation modes on the X100 VI, and I absolutely like it. But because today I'm the tourist, I haven't been to San Francisco in this area at least before, I'm just gonna be shooting and processing my RAWs. So I'm mostly shooting standard, but Jaron has shot a lot of samples across a lot of film simulation modes. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's rocking Across most of the day today, and I'm very jealous. Okay, so IBIS, in-body image stabilization, is one of the things that we really wanted to get some shooting experience with. This is a brand new feature on the X100 VI. You're getting 6 stops rated IBIS, 5.5 stops if you use the optical viewfinder. Still don't know why, I'm sure there's a perfectly good reason. But this is my first opportunity to really test it out, and I've been very impressed. I mean, first off, I'm shooting a lot with the teleconverter here, the 50mm equivalent, so I'm getting a little bit more of a telephoto reach, and I've been doing a lot of street shots where I'm just one-handing it, awkward angles like this, and it's very stable. Handheld, we're able to shoot down to 1/4 of a second quite consistently. I know Jaron's been doing a lot of long exposure stuff. I've been testing it out as well, so I'd say that this is a real success for the X100 VI, and honestly, a real big reason why you'd want to buy one. So because I have a lovely model, Jaron Schneider, and these beautiful lights behind me, we thought, why not revisit the bokeh test? We've seen this already with the X100 V, it's the same lens. Now on this 6 here again, you can see shooting just 35mm f2, we're getting nice bokeh specular highlights, not too much cat's eye vignetting in the corners, but we are getting a bit of a soap bubble effect, and you do see some onion rings as well. Stopping down the lens does get that cat's eye to go away. What I will say though is that focus transitions are still nice. On this 35mm, you absolutely can get some shallow depth of field, and so the transition from in focus to out of focus is still quite pleasant. Now I've actually been shooting this 50mm full frame equivalent field of view teleconverter quite a bit today, just because I haven't really played with them before and because 35mm is a crap focal length. So the 50mm has actually been really nice other than carrying it around. It's a bit bulky, but I also wanted to see what it did to the bokeh, and looking at a very similar example of Jaron here with the background, really not changing it at all. We're still getting the soap bubble effect and onion rings, but we're still getting that nice smooth transition from in focus to out of focus. So Jaron, I'm feeling touches of rain. We should probably wrap things up here pretty quick. Talk about our shooting experience. So you love this camera, you've had more time with it than I have. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm a 35mm junkie.
Yeah.
You are the opposite of that.
I'm really loving the teleconverter.
This is my favorite thing to shoot with because it's so small. It gives me a ton of resolution, way more than I need, and it's just fun. It's just fun to shoot. And you talked about it earlier, the IBIS. That lets me shoot in ways that I couldn't before.
Yeah.
And I'm getting shots that I couldn't get with other cameras in this form factor that I've used before. So I love it. I'm having a great time, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the appeal of it. And again, I don't hate this camera. There's nothing like that.
No, you hate 35.
I just hate 35. So I'm actually really enjoying this experience. You know, we're in San Francisco. Obviously, we're going up and down hills. It's great to carry a small camera like this. It's super lightweight, very discreet. Chinatown, get lots of grab shots. I was actually surprised, like, even though it's flashy silver and black, people aren't really noticing me that much. I still don't like the optical viewfinder, and although they've improved the autofocus for that, I'm just not using it because the EVF is so much better.
I will agree with you. I find myself using it rarely.
Yep.
I'll use the electronic one more than anything. But there's more to this camera than just photos. It does take video.
Yes, and Jordan's been shooting all day long, so why don't we go to Jordan now? We'll talk about his experience using this as a movie camera. It might surprise you.
All right, Jordan here to talk about the video recording capabilities of the X100 VI. Right now I'm recording in 6.2K for the most detailed image possible with 10-bit 422, which is really important because I was tired of looking at gray California skies when we were there, so I've switched it over to sunny California by pulling a key on this. The 10-bit is quite flexible for it. So let's talk about the different recording modes on this camera. So let's kick things off with the standard 4K recording mode that I use to shoot the majority of the episode. This is the camera's default, and it is really nice. This is recording with the full width of the sensor when you're recording 4K up to 30 frames per second. There is a drawback though. This is subsampled recording, so the image isn't going to be quite as detailed, quite as good in low light as cameras that are using oversampled video like what we saw before on the X100V. That said, the advantage of subsampled video is we are getting minimal rolling shutter. This is about 15 milliseconds to read it out, which is quite manageable. It's also worth pointing out that using the standard 4K recording mode, I was able to deplete the battery without the camera overheating at all. Now, if you're looking for faster frame rates, this does give you the ability to jump over to 4K up to 60 frames per second. That is going to give you a crop. It's a 1.14 times crop, which gets you about a 39 millimeter equivalent focal length. But the big drawback here is, unlike the standard 4K up to 30 frames per second, it will absolutely overheat. Here I was able to get 19 minutes of recording before the camera shut down, and I had to cool it off for a little while. Now, if you're looking for a little more detail in your image, then you can jump over to either the 6.2K or 4K HQ recording. These both use the central 26 megapixels of the sensor, giving you a 1.23 crop factor, so pretty close to like a 43 millimeter equivalent focal length with these. And they will absolutely give you a much more detailed image. The trade-off to that is, once we go over here, we are also going to deal with overheating. I got almost the same results on both, 21 minutes recording 6.2K, 20 minutes recording 4K HQ, so very similar there. But the big drawback is the rolling shutter is quite severe in these modes, around 30 milliseconds, so double what we were seeing in standard 4K recording, and the wobble is very noticeable, especially if you're walking with the camera. Okay, so that's a lot of technical information, but what was it actually like taking this camera and shooting with it? Well, for starters, I do have to talk about how annoying if you want to record and monitor your sound. The dongles are, you do need to use a 2.5 millimeter to 3.5 millimeter adapter for most microphones. As well, if you want to monitor, you're going to need a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter mic adapter as well. Now, it looks stupid when you've got both of these attached, but it does give you the ability to confidently record and monitor your audio. But in terms of shooting an episode, the biggest updates for me were definitely the in-body image stabilization, which really helps if you're just hand-holding, trying to have a static shot. I didn't wind up bringing any supports when I was filming the episode out on the streets, and did a really good job with static shots. I do find, however, if you're panning with a subject or especially walking with the camera, it will kind of stick sometimes, fight you a little bit when you're trying to do a deliberate movement. But I was very impressed with the autofocus performance, whether I was using tracking or just having it on eye detect with a single subject in the frame. The autofocus actually did a really good job. That brings me to one of the bigger improvements over the X100 V, which is that this just has tap to track, which most people will find very intuitive. It's how our phones work, and it makes getting good focus in video a whole lot easier. The other major advantage to this compared to the X100 V is we do have the F-Log2 profile, which doesn't give us quite as much dynamic range as what we saw in the XH2S, but it's still an improvement over regular F-Log, and it's an absolute pleasure to grade. So yeah, using the X100 VI was occasionally a little bit annoying while I was out shooting, especially because of all the dongles required for audio. Just looks a little bit silly, but I loved having a camera that was capable of very good quality that I could just drop in my pocket, be nice and unassuming, and quickly pull it out and get nice fast grab shots. And if you were traveling and just wanted some nice video that you could use to build into a montage later, the X100 VI is an absolutely fantastic option for that. So back when we did the initial X100VI preview, we mentioned that maybe the older X100 V might be a better option if you're looking for oversampled, full-width 4K recording mode, and that will still give you a better image if you're using that mode specifically, but I would trade a little bit of that sharpness in the full-width 4K to get all the other benefits that we're seeing here, the in-body image stabilization, the improved autofocus, tap to track, F-Log 2. I think all of those benefits outweigh the slightly sharper video that you'll see on the X100 V in that particular record mode. So that makes the X100VI the best X100 series camera yet released for video production in most cases. I'm not going to use it as my primary camera a lot because of those audio limitations, but I think a lot of people are going to be really impressed by how capable a video camera this is, even if it's not competitive with some of the absolute best hybrid bodies out there.
So we had a great time in San Francisco, and just wandering the streets like that in Chinatown and down to the Embarcadero, that's exactly where a camera like this shines. Pocketable, easy to carry around, lightweight. I really enjoyed my experience, and I liked it for the exact same reasons that I really enjoyed the experience that I had with the Fujifilm X100 VI, but this has some notable improvements which I think are really worthwhile. So IBIS, finally, long time coming, but it's very effective, and we absolutely did want to test a lot of those long exposures, and we were impressed by how slow we could get and still get sharp images. That's a huge improvement. Having the 40 megapixel sensor, great, and I really didn't have any issues with it in combination with this lens. Even shooting at f2, where of course the lens can be a little bit softer than stop down, I still think that the resolution's excellent. It's absolutely making use of the 40 megapixel sensor, and you really do notice an image improvement here if you need to do cropping or larger prints. I also really enjoyed the experience of using a teleconverter because I haven't really done that on the X100s before. I haven't done a lot of testing on it, but first off, not having to shoot 35mm was great, but also I was impressed by how the sharpness is still maintained, not losing any light, and I didn't mind the extra bulk. So for me, that was worth it, and it gave me a different kind of angle than I would normally get. So you know what? I enjoyed it. Would I like to have one? Sure. And I know Jaron and Jordan were particularly enamored. And this is the kind of camera that can really pull at somebody's heartstrings and make them fall in love almost instantly. And it really is because of the experience. It's about having that analog control, the look of it, the feel. Having something that's simple and pocketable that you can just take with you anywhere. If you don't love the experience of shooting this, you have other alternatives like, the Ricoh GR3 series, for example. You can even get different focal lengths, which I would far prefer. But if you want to know if this camera is going to be right for you, you definitely have to get it in your hand. And therein lies the crux of the issue. This camera is so popular. People want it so badly, even without ever having touched one, that the demand is still incredibly high. We were wondering if all the issues we had with the X100V were going to be repeated, and it looks like, yes, even more so. So try to get your hands on an older one, at least get some experience deciding whether you like the control structure, you like the feel, you like the way that it handles, and then if so, absolutely feel free to jump on the bandwagon and wait God knows how long until you get one. I hope it's sooner than later. As usual, let us know in the comments below your thoughts on this and the entire X100 platform and just how you feel about it. As well, do check out our podcasts, PetaPixel podcast. You can find it on all your favorite podcasting apps, or you can watch it on the exact same channel here. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon more on PetaPixel.